checks have a lot of moving parts you want to keep track of, from figuring out if you are eligible for a payment, how much money you qualify for, and to what to do if you don't receive your full amount. It can be even more confusing if you receive Social Security benefits like SSI and SSDI, or you run into problems of any kind with how the IRS is sending your payment. Why is there so much to know about these third payments? The $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that authorizes the checks reworked key details about the checks, including income limits, dependent benefits, and a major expansion to the child tax credit. Here's when the CTC payments could arrive and who's eligible. Some adjustments were also made to citizenship-based eligibility requirements. And with the IRS making payments in the middle of this year's tax season, your taxes play a big role in determining whether you'll get a check for the full amount, and when, especially now that Tax Day 2020 is May 17. We'll walk you through what to know, including guidance on how to claim any missing stimulus money and how to check your payment status with the IRS. P.S. Here's what's being said about a fourth stimulus check so far. This story was recently updated. More than 30 million new stimulus checks could arrive 3 ways. Take a look at our stimulus check scorecard to keep tabs on how many payments the IRS sent out so far, and who's received them. The IRS continues to send out waves of payments through paper checks in the mail, or EIP prepaid debit cards, and some still as direct deposits. Here's how to track a mailed payment. There's a third option as well. Social Security beneficiaries such as SSI, SSDI, and recipients of veterans' benefits could get their stimulus payments as a direct express card. Social Security recipients are starting to get their checks the week of April 5. Plus-up payments. If the IRS underestimated the size of your check, you could receive a plus-up payment. For example, if your income was lower in 2020 than it was 2019 if you added new child or dependent on their 2020 tax return, you might qualify for more money than the IRS sent you if it calculated your payment based on your 2019 taxes. These ongoing payments started with those received their checks in March. Hold-ups will happen, and finding help may not be easy. Any problem with stimulus check delivery, or even a calculation error, could keep you from getting your check. For example, if you moved, you need to make sure the IRS has your new address, not only the USPS. And depending on which tax year the IRS uses when processing your stimulus payment, any difference could mean you only receive a partial payment, and you have to wait for the rest. One example would be if you gained a dependent in 2020, including a new baby, but the IRS bases your stimulus check on your 2019 tax return. Read more below for which tax year the IRS will use for you. Unfortunately, solving a problem with your payment isn't so straightforward. With the first check, the IRS hired 3,500 new telephone representatives to take your call and published 2 help numbers. By the third check, the IRS is telling people not to call. We share some suggestions for detangling an issue. Your current tax return could make a huge difference in your payment amount. Tax season and the timing of a third stimulus check overlap, especially now that the tax day deadline has moved to May 17. If you submitted your 2020 tax return, but the IRS didn't process it yet, how to know? It will base your total on income from either your 2019 tax return, or even earlier, whichever it has on hand when it determines the size of your payment. If you didn't file yet, you'll be paid based on 2019 taxes. Depending on your situation, using predominantly 2019 taxes could benefit you or cause the IRS to owe you money. If your situations change, like if you gained a dependent who counts for $1,400 more, or it may have no effect if you qualify for the full $1,400 based on your 2020 taxes, but your check total was lower because the IRS based it on your 2019 taxes, you'd have to claim the difference, possibly when you file in 2022, if not sooner. Here are situations in which you'd be expected to return stimulus money to the IRS. If you're a non-filer such as an SSDI or SSI recipient, the IRS will base your check size on information it has on hand. You may need to file a simple 2020 tax return to claim dependents the IRS may not know about. Here's more information on what non-filers should do. More dependents are included this time. The $1.9 trillion stimulus bill opens the qualifications to roughly 13.5 million more dependents for a third stimulus payment, for $1,400 apiece, than the first 2 payments did by expanding the definition of a dependent. With the new check, any dependent, child or adult, would count toward a payment. With the first check and the second, Congress included children age 16 and under but excluded dependents 17 and older. There's a strict income limit for the third stimulus payment. The third stimulus check comes with a $1,400 per person maximum. To target or restrict the third check to lower and middle income households, the legislation includes eligibility rules that exclude individuals and families at the highest income levels. An individual with an AGI, adjusted gross income, of at least $80,000 a year would hit the payment cutoff, as would a head of household earning $120,000 and a couple filing jointly with an AGI of $160,000. However, any dependent a taxpayer claims could qualify for a $1,400 payment. But unlike the first two stimulus payments, people above the hard upper limit wouldn't be able to get a partial check by having dependents. Here's how the stimulus check formula would work. If you want to see for yourself, try our stimulus calculator for the third check. Some people don't qualify for a stimulus check at all. The strict income cap Congress has set for the third check means you could quickly be disqualified from receiving a check or receiving much less than the potential amount the House and Senate agreed to. We explore that here, including changes in your personal life that may have an effect, such as if you got a raise in the past year or if you claim fewer dependents this time around. Here's who might not qualify for a new stimulus check. Many households are getting a much larger payment this time. A $1,400 maximum total per person is an obvious way your household would see more money from a third check, compared to $1,200 maximum for the first and $600 for the second. But there's more to it than that. Since the upper limit for the second check was $600 per adult with an extra $600 per child dependent, according to the IRS formula, more people hit the upper income limit for receiving a second payment, and that means they didn't actually qualify to get any stimulus money at all. A third stimulus check makes more groups of people eligible to receive money, namely non-citizens who pay taxes, and bring a larger total check to qualified individuals and their families, including $1,400 payments to dependents. A change in your circumstances can also mean you qualify for more money this time. Here are other ways a third stimulus check could put more money in your pocket. Eligibility guidelines have expanded for this check. While the hard income cap will disqualify millions, the third stimulus check also extends qualifications to dependents of any age. That includes college students, older adult relatives and dependents of all ages with disabilities, not just those under 17 years old. The second change to eligibility includes all mixed-status households, with one or more family members who aren't U.S. citizens. An example would be parents who aren't U.S. citizens, but their U.S.-born children are. The second stimulus checks made families with one U.S. citizen spouse eligible. However, people who are non-resident aliens won't qualify for a stimulus check in the third round. You will be able to claim missing stimulus money. Although stimulus checks are well on their way, the IRS will have until December 31, 2021. To automatically send the payments. That leeway would allow for the agency to potentially fix any direct deposit errors, calculation problems or issues including the right amount of money for dependents. Any discrepancy between 2019 and 2020 taxes could also be claimed in this time period, presumably. It's also likely that any issues that remain after this deadline could be resolved with taxpayers and non-filers alike claiming any missing money as a recovery rebate credit in 2022. You might be able to solve a specific missing money problem sooner by requesting a payment trace with the IRS. For more information about stimulus checks, other funding in the new stimulus package, including a child tax credit of up to $3,600 per child, how to estimate your third stimulus check and what we know.
Coming tax season is going to be a tax season for the child.
Since July, some of you have been getting monthly direct deposits from the IRS based on the number of children you claim on your 2020 tax return. It all stems from the child tax credit. About that child tax credit, before you file your taxes in 2021, Dana Overall, a 30-year certified public accountant, has some advice.
These payments are not counted as income in 2021, but you must reconcile those payments when you file your 2020 tax return.
Meaning taxpayers in January 2022 will receive a letter called 6419 from the IRS. It will provide the total advance payments of that child tax credit received.
Keep this form if you are a taxpayer, as it must be reconciled when you file your tax returns for 2021.
Here's a twist. Overall says if you can't claim children on your 2021 tax return, but you did claim children on your 2020 tax return, you could be in the negative.
They could have an overpayment of this advance that must be repaid either through writing a check or a substantially reduced refund.
There's also been favorable changes for parents who have children in daycare. In 2020, the percentage of child-dependent care expenses was 35% for up to $3,000. That credit was increased to 50% for up to $8,000 in daycare or child care payments per child.
If you had children in daycare, most likely you are going to see a favorable result when you file your taxes for 2021.
Overall has one more piece of advice when it comes to daycare. He says if you can, pay some of those child care expenses this week instead of next week.
So those expenses get included on the 2021 tax return.
In Madison County, Chad Hedrick, WKYT.
The child tax credit is set to expire in just 2 days. Let's go back over to Carly Drew, who's here in studio. And Carly, what are some ways for parents to offset the loss of these funds?
Josh, the American Recovery Act's child tax expansion kept 3 million kids out of poverty the first month alone. Now, this tax credit came in monthly instead of once a year. For this new year's tax season, the income will come once during your tax return will be reduced back to $2,000. Now, there are ways parents can manage this change. Making a strict budget and creating a savings plan are highly encouraged. It's also recommended for parents to know higher paying jobs are out there. Freedom Retirement recommends considering those needs over your wants.
Best thing folks can do is to sit down and go over their budget. It's one of those things that's tough to do, but it is liberating when it's done. Those cups of coffee that, even a few a month can start to add up over time. And so my recommendation is to put a budget together.
Now, whether you start budgeting using a spreadsheet, an app, or even a notepad, Matt Rowley mentioned whatever you do is the best way to do so. For more information and additional resources, we have a link posted on this story at colotv.com. Josh?
Yeah, it's always better to prepare and plan ahead, all right?
More child tax credit checks are on the schedule for this year, with the second half of the payments arriving during tax season in 2022. By the end of this year, families will have received 6 advance installments, totaling up to $1,800 per child, an increase from previous years. But the big question still remains: will the new enhanced child tax credit payments be extended beyond 2022? There's a possibility that the revamped benefit could be extended, depending on the final details of President Joe Biden's spending plan. Currently, Democrats are negotiating how long it will continue. The debate is leaning towards 1 year. Until it becomes final legislation, there are still several deadlines for the remainder of this year's credit that parents need to be aware of. For example, families that are choosing to opt out of the advance payment program need to do so before November 29. Here's why you might want to unenroll. It's also a good idea for families to update their banking details, income and mailing address through the IRS update portal sooner rather than later. And here's what to know if you received the wrong payment amount. The latest on the enhanced child tax credit getting extended past 2022. Given the popularity of the program with millions of families, there's a chance the credit could be extended. A recent study published by the Urban Institute shows that if the child tax credit is extended beyond 2021, it could substantially reduce child poverty in the vast majority of U.S. states. And most recently, the Democrats are in talks about extending the credit for just 1 year due to slimming the spending amount of the bill. A Washington-based think tank called the Bipartisan Policy Center put out a proposal for permanently expanding the child tax credit. On Sept. 15, more than 400 leading economists sent an open letter urging Congress to make the enhanced credit permanent. The letter noted that the benefit would help families with immediate necessities, like food and utilities, and could drastically improve children's health and education. Most recently, lawmakers proposed extending the child tax credit to just 1 year, in an effort to trim the cost of President Joe Biden's $3.5 trillion plan. But others are still pushing for the credit to be extended to 2025. For instance, House Democrats came up with a proposal to keep the increased benefit going until 2025, which would also allow low-income families who don't earn enough to owe taxes to get the benefit. Some are looking to approve its extension in the spending bill through a process known as budget reconciliation, which requires a simple majority vote in the Senate. But congressional Democrats are divided over the benefit. In a CNN interview, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia expressed reservations, saying he'd prefer that parents be eligible to receive the credit only if they work and file taxes. His vote is critical for the bill to pass the Senate. According to an insider report, other Democrats are considering extending the current child tax credit payment program until 2024 instead, but the amount of money would be less than this year's payments, that is, reverting to the lower amounts from prior years. Remaining deposit dates for the child tax credit payments: the IRS has 2 more rounds of advance partial payments to send to those who qualify. Here are the payment dates to keep track of November through December 2021 and in 2022. November 15th Dec. 15. Last payment of 2021, tax season 2022. Remainder of money. After you receive whatever monthly payments the IRS sends you this year, the remainder of your money will come with your tax refund in 2022. after you file your 2021 tax return next spring. While the IRS did extend the 2020 and 2021 tax filing dates due to the pandemic, you typically have from the end of January to April 15 to file. Remaining deadlines to unenroll from advance checks. If you decide to unenroll from the monthly payments this year, you still have time to have the remainder of your child tax credit money show up next tax season. You may decide to unenroll, for example, if you think you may need to pay back money when you file your taxes in 2022. Note that the IRS opt-out deadlines are about 2 weeks ahead of the payment dates. If you miss one deadline for a round of checks, your changes will take effect with the next round. And these are the same deadlines you need to hit for making other changes to your account, such as adding your banking information or changing your mailing address. The update portal doesn't yet allow you to make changes to your marital status and number of dependents. Here are the remaining dates by which you would need to unenroll. November 29, for December payment. Can families determine how the credit will affect tax season? To help you file your taxes next year and either claim whatever amount the IRS still owes you or, much less likely, repay money you received but didn't qualify for, the IRS will send you a letter in January 2022 with the total amount of child tax credit money you received in 2021. You'll use information from this letter, which the IRS is calling Letter 6419, when you file your tax return. For more, here's everything you need to know about the 2020